The Appalachian Mountains hold more than just trees, rivers, and fog. Some places bleed with history, and this battlefield still hasn't healed. During the height of the Civil War, two armies clashed here, turning rolling green hills into rivers of blood. Men fought hand to hand, bayonets piercing, musket fire echoing between ridges. The ground shook with cannon blasts, and when the smoke cleared, thousands lay still. The soil drank it all in. Locals whisper that the earth itself remembers. Farmers who tried to till this ground decades later complained their plows struck bones. Buttons from uniforms, rusted rifles, sometimes a skull. At night, the battlefield never feels quiet. Even when the crickets chirp, there's a strange hum in the air, like a vibration just under the wind. People say it feels like standing inside a heartbeat. And then there are the cries. Hikers who dared to camp nearby claim they've woken to the sound of screaming. Not just one voice, but dozens. Orders barked by unseen commanders. Horses neighing in terror. The ring of steel clashing. A war replaying itself in the dark. One old man told of walking through the woods in late autumn. The leaves were brittle, the air sharp. He swore he heard boots stomping in formation. Dozens of them. But when he turned, nothing was there. Just fog drifting between the trees. The strangest detail? He said the smell came next. Not smoke, not pine, but blood. Coppery, metallic, thick. He said it choked his throat, made him gag. Yet the woods around him were empty. And he wasn't the only one. Generation after generation has passed down warnings. Don't linger on that hill after sunset. Don't answer the whispers. And if you hear footsteps behind you, never turn around. Because those footsteps, they don't belong to the living. And sometimes they don't stop, even if you run. As the sun sinks behind the Appalachian ridges, the battlefield changes. In daylight, it's haunting but still. At night, the land breathes differently. Locals say that's when the ghosts of war rise. Visitors who dare to step onto the field after dark describe the same chilling patterns. First, it starts small, like a distant pop, too sharp to be a branch snapping. It echoes, then repeats. Soon it becomes unmistakable, the sound of musket fire. Then the whispers begin. They drift across the open field, low and urgent. Too many voices to count. Soldiers shouting commands in accents long dead. Some clear, some muffled as if coming from beneath the earth. Paranormal investigators who recorded these whispers claim the audio captured words that weren't even English, archaic military slang, long forgotten. One team of ghost hunters set up equipment just before midnight. The fog rolled in, thick and unnatural. Cameras picked up moving shadows where no tree stood. One investigator felt a sudden weight press down on his chest, forcing him to his knees. He gasped that he couldn't breathe, as if invisible hands were tightening around his throat. The others pulled him away, but when they checked the footage later, his outlines seemed to vanish for several seconds, as if he were swallowed by the fog. He said he remembered nothing, only the sound of men screaming all around him. Another story comes from a woman who parked her car near the battlefield's edge one late evening. She rolled down her window to listen. At first, there was only silence. Then hoofbeats. Heavy, pounding, racing past her car. But when she turned her headlights on, there was no horse. No rider. Only the road trembling beneath her tires. Locals say these aren't just memories replaying themselves. They're warnings. Echoes from soldiers who don't realize they're dead, still caught in a cycle of endless war. And sometimes, the whispers don't fade when you leave the battlefield. There are stories of people who return home and still hear boots marching in their hallway. Gunfire erupting in the distance. Voices calling their names at 3 in the morning. It's as if the battlefield chooses who to follow. And once it does, you can never really escape. Among all the ghostly tales, one legend stands out. Locals call him the soldier who walks alone. Some say he was a Confederate left behind, mortally wounded and crawling through the mud until his final breath. Others claim he was Union, wandering in search of his lost regiment. The truth? No one knows, but nearly everyone who has seen him describes the same chilling figure. A tall man in a tattered uniform, Face pale, eyes hollow, a rifle dragging from his hand. He never runs. He just walks, slowly, deliberately, as though he has nowhere else to go, except toward you. One eyewitness, a park ranger, swore he saw the soldier standing at the tree line just before dawn. The fog was thin, the light barely breaking through. He raised his flashlight, and the beam passed right through the figure, yet the soldier's shadow stretched long across the grass. When the ranger blinked, the soldier was gone. But the shadow? It lingered. Others haven't been so lucky. A hiker reported being followed by heavy footsteps through the woods. Every time he stopped, the sound stopped. When he quickened his pace, the footsteps matched. Then he heard the clink of metal, like a bayonet hitting against a belt buckle. He ran. He didn't look back until he reached his car. But when he slammed the door shut, he saw him standing across the lot, motionless, watching. There are even darker stories. One group of college students visited the site on a dare. Around midnight, they spotted a figure approaching from the fog. Thinking it was a reenactor or a ranger, they called out. No answer. The figure kept walking closer and closer until they realized his eyes weren't reflecting the flashlight beams. They weren't eyes at all, just black hollows. The students scattered, running for the road. Later, one of them confessed that even while sprinting, she could hear his boots right behind her. When she tripped and fell, she felt cold hands brush her shoulder. But when she turned, nothing, just mist curling over the ground. The legend says if the soldier who walks alone touches you, you'll never be free of him. He follows, night after night, step after step, until he leads you back to the battlefield. Because that's where you belong now. Some ghosts wander. Others wait. But here, on this haunted Appalachian battlefield, the dead don't simply haunt the land, they defend it. Locals swear the ground is cursed. Machines break down when construction crews try to dig near the site. Surveyors report compasses spinning wildly, refusing to point north. Even the animals seem to sense it. Deer won't graze there. Birds won't nest. Dogs whimper and pull at their leashes, desperate to leave. And the accidents. One man tried to cut through the old battlefield on his ATV to save time. Hours later, his friends found the vehicle overturned, still warm, but no sign of him. His body was discovered weeks later, deep in the woods, his hands clutching at the soil as if he had crawled for miles. His face was frozen in terror. Families who moved nearby have reported the same disturbing pattern. Children waking at night, crying about men shouting in the trees, doors slamming shut on their own, and always the same dream. Soldiers marching past their windows, muskets in hand, their boots shaking the floorboards. Some say the apparitions have grown bolder. No longer satisfied with replaying their last moments, they reach out, pulling people into the fog, surrounding them in the dark. One hunter described seeing glowing lanterns moving through the woods at night, carried by invisible hands. He followed, thinking it was other hunters. But then the light stopped, and from the silence came dozens of voices screaming at once. Orders, cries, pleas for help. The man ran without stopping, but later admitted something terrifying. He wasn't sure if he'd really made it out, because for days afterward, he kept finding mud on his boots. Thick, black mud, the kind only found at the battlefield. Some believe the soldiers aren't just trapped, they're recruiting, searching for new souls to march alongside them in their eternal war. And if you wander too close, they might just find you. The Appalachian battlefield rests in silence by day. But when night falls, the silence shatters. Gunfire that has no source. Whispers that circle you in the dark. A lone soldier who never stops walking. And a war that never truly ended. Some say these are just echoes of history, memories burned into the soil. Others believe the land itself is alive, pulling the living into its endless cycle of violence. So ask yourself, if you stood there at midnight and the fog rolled in around your feet, would you hear them? Would you see the soldiers' hollow eyes staring back at you? And if you did, would you ever come back the same? Maybe the battlefield isn't haunted at all. Maybe it's hungry. And maybe the next voice screaming in the dark will be yours. If you're still here, listening in the dark, don't forget to like this video subscribe to the channel, and step deeper into the stories Appalachia doesn't want you to know. Because the past never stays buried.